David Lawrence then on pole, Tim Evans second, ahead of Kerry Lewis and Oliver Devine King. Christopher Garnham and Paul Hoggins then share the third row of the grid. Row 4 should be Chris Adams and Stephen Watson. Not sure why Chris's name isn't appearing on the grid sheet. Maybe something suggesting there he's not going to be starting the race. David Richardson and Jonathan Halliwell will be next, ahead of Dawn Butcher and Matt Anderson. Then we get into those that didn't finish yesterday. John Wyatt, again absent from that grid sheet for some reason, should be 13th, alongside Paul Rodderson, with Paul Dunningham and Harley Young at the back of the grid. Looks as though we should have most of the cars out on track, I think. David Lawrence then the winner yesterday in his Seat Leon Cupra, with Tim Evans in his Audi TT coming home in second position, but some 28 seconds or so back, and running in a different class as well to David, in fairness, but it was a close run thing for class honours between Tim Evans and Kerry Lewis, second and third overall, but they were fighting for a class victory, and it was only just under 0.4 of a second between them at the flag, so pretty close between the pair. Hopefully they will put on another good showing today. There is the grey Audi of Tim Evans, the green and white VW of Kerry Lewis, the Mark V Golf GTI. Next of the Audi TTs is Oliver Devine King. That's a TT Cup spec Audi TT. And same is true of David Richardson, so they've got their own separate class for TT Cup. David Lawrence, sorry, Tim Evans, excuse me, his Audi TT running slightly different regulations, despite being run by the same team, the Garage 23 squad, as the Oliver Devine King car. So, cars then make their way around towards the start of their second 15-minute race of the weekend, and all signs should, in theory, point towards another dominant victory for David Lawrence, especially with the likes of Paul Rodderson starting deep in the field after his non-finish yesterday, and David will certainly be hoping that proves to be the case.
Fingers crossed. He was quite positive after yesterday. He was hoping that Paul was a bit closer to him, but the fact he dropped off and David got a nice trouble-free run means that the Cooper is on good form. Let's try and replicate that. And of course, Tim Evans was quite pleased with his second place as well in his Audi TT. Of course, that being the Genesis, the original baseline development car, what has become the Audi TT Cup racing champion for the past few seasons. And those cars have become so diverse. You tend to see them pop up in not just that championship, but in others like Class World Trophy, Supersport Endurance, and other places around club racing, which shows how good a car it was to put together. But it's also quite versatile, so it can pop up in other places, and it's quite well user-friendly. So should be an interesting drag race off the line, Cupra versus Audi TT, but I'm sure Tim Evans will give as good as he gets. But having seen that car in other areas of motorsport, it's quite a prominent piece of kit, the Cupra for David Lawrence, so I imagine that car's not going to stay still as it did yesterday, and probably, if he gets the opportunity, clear off into the distance.
Yes, I suspect he probably will. It was a formidable pace that he was running yesterday, and I see no reason why that's going to change now for the second race of the weekend. The 5-second board then is held aloft. We're ready to go for the second time this weekend then in the RacingLine VW Audi Racing Championship. David Lawrence and Tim Evans then looking to try and get the run into the first corner. Away they go. Lawrence does get away well. It's a good start for Oliver Devine King as well in the yellow Audi TT. He's up there challenging Tim Evans for second. They are side by side into the first corner with Kerry Lewis to the inside of both of them. Kerry bails out of it, as ultimately does Oliver, and so it will be Tim Evans then who hangs on to second position, with Devine King getting between the two who were battling for a class victory yesterday. One of the Scirocco's there a bit wide over the exit curb at Riches, but they're cleanly through the first corner, descending now upon the hairpin at Wilson. And one car barging up the inside. That was the 46 car of Paul Dunningham. He was sideways there on the opening lap yesterday. That time around, gets the braking absolutely right and picks up a position or two.
Yeah, sort of the brake bias on that car, I think, at least, or the rear balance on the brakes much better. And I wasn't sure if I could see Paul Rodderson, but he was actually there towards the back. So thankfully, whatever mechanical issue he had that saw that car, looks like overheating of some kind, he's now back through it, already charging his way through. You can see the white Seat Cupra. I think that's at least an old Cup car, if not possibly a TCR, I think, but one of the two. Well, it looks like one anyway. And he's picking his way through. He's got one of the Seats in front of him to try and pick off as well. So it's the Seat Cupra of 25. It's also going to try and pick past as well. There goes Paul Dunningham in that silver one. He's trying to get up the inside of Rodderson now to try and battle for position. And that Audi's got some poke in it in a straight line in through the corners. It's not too bad either as they come into Murray's for the first time. Oliver Devine King, I think he's doing double duty today. He's also, if I'm right, he was out in qualifying, at least not in this kind of different car, in the Production Cup. So look, he's doing double duty today, this weekend, after doing one race yesterday. So Lawrence leads, Evans second, Kerry Lewis third. That's exactly as it was at the end of the race yesterday. So podium place, so there's a whole gaggle of cars back for about, what, 7th place backwards?
Yes, among them Paul Roddison trying to make up for his lowly starting position. Looked like he was gaining a few more places heading down the main straight. David Lawrence, though, leads by 3.8 seconds already over Tim Evans, and Kerry Lewis finally gets up into third position, and that's significant because he needs to go after Tim Evans really to try and claim another class victory. Oliver Divine King is not in the same class as those two, but he was between them there for much of that opening lap, and that's just allowed Tim Evans to get away ever so slightly. And then you've got Christopher Garnham coming up behind in the Audi A3. And he looks like he's closing in now quite rapidly on Divine King as well. In fact, peeks to the inside into Brundle, but not quite able to make the move underneath the iconic Snetterton bridge. There goes Roddison, 3 abreast further back, is it? This is Dunningham again making a move to the inside of one of the Scirocco's, and in fact gains 2 positions, gets past David Richardson as well. He's pretty confident on the brakes now, isn't he?
At S3, yeah, definitely. So, like he's got EBC brakes on the bonnet. Either he's put that on overnight or he's sourced them from EBC overnight somewhere else. But brakes are working how they should do, thankfully. You've now got TT versus 2 Scirocco's and a Seat. Someone's kicked up some dust on the exit somewhere heading towards Coram as they come through the right-hander. It's now one Scirocco around the outside and actually powering his way completely through. So that was a good move there for the 24 Jonathan Halliwell against Stephen Watson. Stephen Watson's car with a what I call sort of retro coloured car. It's the white with the orange, red and orange sort of yellowish orange and red striping on that car. Looks like Watson's car got a bit more straight line speed. He's going back now at the other Scirocco of Halliwell down towards turn 1. So again, it's speed versus handling, and there was a bit more horsepower in Watson's car, but it looks like there was enough still left in Halliwell's car to keep himself in front by the time they got to Rich's. Yes,
just about, and in fact he's now having a go at David Richardson again. Look, dives to the inside into the Wilson hairpin, and he's going to go through. So Halliwell defends a position into Rich's, and then at the very next turn he's gaining ground. I think maybe Richardson is struggling a bit under braking. He got done by Paul Dunningham into Brundle and Nelson a lap ago and didn't have much defence there against Halliwell. Into the hairpin. The Audi, though, better in a straight line, maybe. Pulls to the outside as they head down into the Brundle-Nelson complex of corners. Can he go right round the outside? Yes, he can, and he immediately proves me wrong because that was pretty committed under braking for David Richardson, who manages then to pick up that spot that he lost earlier on in the lap. But this has all the hallmarks of a ding-dong battle, doesn't it? Halliwell leads his class. He's in the same class as Matt Anderson, who's only a couple of positions further back in the number 25 Seat Leon. He's back up the inside now of David Richardson as well, and reclaims the place. So 3 times these two have traded 9th position over the course of this lap, and Halliwell will now be hoping that he can sort of pull a bit of a margin over the Audi driver behind him. TT definitely has the edge in a straight line, and David Richardson's going to have another go here, I think, as they head into Rich's at the beginning of lap number 4. Does the Audi go back through? Yes, it does. So 4 positional changes in a lap between the pair of them. They might not be in the same class. They might be racing 2 very different cars built to very different regulations, but it's a pretty entertaining tussle between the 2 of them, and David Richardson is not giving in here, keeping Jonathan Halliwell well and truly within his sights, and he should maybe now have the straight line speed to challenge again at the end of the Bentley Straight.
Nice drag race as they come back down towards Brundle and Nelson. Also in the further back there's a bit more battling going on in another gaggle of cars. That is Matt Anderson scrapping with Dawn Butcher and Harley Young. That's over 12th position. Here comes Watson to the inside of Richardson. Makes the move stick as they even turn right through Nelson. Slightly gingerly through the apex. Looks like they've got a bit more straight line speed than handling. Not that they haven't got any handling, but they're a bit more quicker in a straight line, and maybe they can actually handle in the corners at points. And that seems to be, at least handling wise, where Halliwell's Scirocco has a bit more strength compared to Richardson's, because he seemed to just easily drive around the outside of Watson through Coram a couple of laps ago. That suggests that car's a bit more better set up for cornering rather than straight line speed, even though it has got plenty. Out of the apex at Murray's, 9 minutes to go. Still the same top 3 as it was yesterday. Still Lawrence from Evans from Lewis, but I'd say it's now quite close for third, because Lewis, Divine King and Roddison came across the line, separated by 7/10 of a second. So I think there's a fight on for third, wherever we can pick them up on the camera. Down the pit straight they come. There's Dawn Butcher, who's I think she's a marshal herself, and also supporting marshals on the bonnet as well. Hence the orange and black Volkswagen Golf GTR. But I'd love to see what's happening with the scrap for third, because there's 710s covering that scrap, and a little bit further up I think I've just gone out of my earshot going through down the straight. That's Paul Hoggins has got past Garnham, and they're just at the head of them is that trio for third. Looks like Roderson has got past Divine King up into fourth. Next time to get on the podium overall will be Kerry Lewis in that Mark V Golf.
Yes, and I suspect that should happen. Paul Roderson was quite comfortably the second fastest car on track yesterday, and should be able to work his way up into the similar position in this one. As the next group behind does battle as well, with Garnham, Hoggins and Dunningham all scrapping over 6th position, and crucially 3rd place within their class as well. Dunningham there in the 46 Audi, in fact, has gained a position, snatches the break again into Murray's. He was doing that all day yesterday, and continuing again now in race 2. Gains the position, and looks to try and get away. Kerry Lewis there, overtaken by Paul Roderson, who is now up into 3rd. He's got about 4 seconds, give or take, to try and bridge now to catch Tim Evans, but we're only halfway through the race, so I suspect he'll be able to do that. Given the pace of their respective cars. Roderson's best lap is a 23.2, which is 1.2 seconds quicker than anything Tim Evans has done, so he should be able to catch the Audi. I doubt he will then have the pace, quite frankly, to go after David Lawrence, though, who has set the fastest lap of the race so far, and was a little bit quicker than Roderson in the race yesterday. But good fight back drive this for Paul Roderson then, after the disappointment of the retirement yesterday when running 2nd place. He's picking his way through the order nicely now, as we sort of anticipated he would. There's Paul Dunningham, keeping Chris Garnham behind. But as they battle, Paul Hoggins in his Audi TT is just starting to stretch the gap slightly ahead of the 2 Audis behind, the A3 and the S3, which were very evenly matched yesterday. Continue to be so in the 2nd race of the weekend. Oliver Divine King there was scrapping with Kerry Lewis as well. Looked like he was coming back at the Golf driver. Kerry never has really been able to go after Tim Evans in this race, has he? In the same way that he did yesterday. Tim, having built that early margin, is retaining that class lead pretty much uncontested.
One of the cooler conditions are helping him out, because there were a couple of cars, of course, that had issues based on it being quite warm yesterday and overheating, including Paul Roderson's car. So I wonder if the cooler temperatures today is helping. And there's the physical evidence. Paul Roderson has not only caught Tim Evans, hasn't quite got enough to pass him into Montreal hairpin, but you do suspect that the pace he's got in a straight line and the handling that car seems to have, which is an advantage over Evans's road-based TT, it's going to be more than enough for Roderson to get past. Having said that Evans TT has got some poke in a straight line, enough to keep Roderson's car at bay, but I think the superior handling is better, at least by the end of the straight in the toe. Roderson's got a bit more top end, and by the time it's head in towards Brundle, the move is done. So up into 2nd place, and I think that's safe to say, touch wood, unless tentatively something happens to Lawrence, who's 27 seconds up the road. If that's the commentator's curse, I'll take it. But Roderson now looks like comfortably in 2nd place, and already starting to create a gap on the exit of the bomb hole.
Yeah, he is indeed. So Paul Roderson then now will be just hoping against hope that the car holds together for the remaining 5 minutes or so of the race, and he can at least bring it home on the podium, overall podium, in 2nd position, which it looked as though he was going to do yesterday. Powers across the line then, and Paul Roderson already gapping Tim Evans. He's 29.5 seconds behind the leader, so not likely to challenge David Lawrence, unless David, of course, starts running into issues. There's Evans then leading his class. Kerry Lewis is 4 seconds, almost exactly 4 seconds behind him, and still coming under a bit of threat from Oliver Divine King. Only a second between those two. Paul Dunningham is then a further 2 seconds back in 6th. He's got about a second in hand over Paul Hoggins. They're pretty equidistantly spaced out, this midfield group. Just see those cars in the background making their way out onto the Bentley Straight. Paul Roderson, though, starting to get away. It does look to me like a TCR spec, a Gen 1 spec Cupra. And Paul Roderson, not sure how long he's been racing this car. We've seen Paul racing all manner of cars over the years, including Mazda MX-5s, which I seem to recall is where he sort of made his name, probably getting on for 20 years ago or so now. He won't thank me for saying, but a very handy peddler is Paul Roderson, branching out into some slightly different machinery now, and going extremely well in the TCR Cupra, which did have those issues yesterday, but seems, touch wood, to be running pretty smoothly in race 2.
Another car he's been racing recently has been developing, which is a very unique car for club racing. He's been racing a Skoda Octavia VRS, which has been quite cool to see. It's been splendid in grey and green. It's been quite a cool looking car, actually, for what it is. Good to see he's brought something different, and it's starting to raced more in BRSCC circles the last couple of seasons. Seems to be more welcome addition to the paddock in BRSCC in that sense, and seems to be enjoying himself in the Volkswagen Audi Racing Championship, which is an amalgamation, as I'm sure you mentioned earlier on, of what is the Classic VW Cup, but also the Audi TT Cup Racing Championship, which is good to see both cars together. Meanwhile, out for a casual, still Sunday morning drive is David Lawrence. Now 30 seconds out in front. He's already put a lap on both Dawn Butcher and Matt Anderson in their VW Golf and Audi respectively, and just spread eagling the field in the coupe, which is going so quickly the cameraman even can't catch it there. He just appears up the inside of Dawn Butcher from nowhere. We're trying to spot it where it goes. He's that fast, can't even keep tabs on the camera. But David Lawrence continues on. He's got about just under 3 minutes to go. So I'd say lap time wise, maybe 3 laps. His lap time is what, 1 minute 90, 1 minute 20. So we've got roughly, he might get to the flag with about 4 or 5 seconds to go. So they're going to get 3 more laps here, which might be a respite for anyone else that's in a battle. But at the moment, David Lawrence quite fully, aside from a few cars, is starting to lap people towards the back. So it looks as though Lawrence is blissfully sailing away out in front and keeping a nice watching brief and everyone else behind.
Yeah, unstoppable at the moment. David Lawrence in this quite heavily modified Seat Leon, which certainly added some sort of front bodywork kit to it. The front of the car is quite a bit wider than the back of the car, about a foot I think, almost combined from side to side. It's a distinctive looking car. You can see the Area Motorsport badge or sticker on the rear quarter. Rob Baker's team obviously responsible for preparing the car. I don't know whether Area Motorsport built it or whether this was a David Lawrence project that he's brought to the team that have had such success in on-make racing and indeed in TCR competition of late. Running cars very successfully in TCR UK and further afield. Very successful in the Civic Cup. They've run Fiestas before, all sorts of cars, Area Motorsport. They're a very, very versatile squad. And anything they touch seems to be successful, doesn't it? And David Lawrence is certainly grateful for that. They've given him a car that not only is very, very quick, but seems to have the reliability as well. No one else on this grid, at least, can quite match his pace.
Not quite. He's come across the line with about 5-6 seconds to go, so he's going to get 2 more laps than the one he's on at the moment, unless he really slows it down with enough for lead and decides to make this the last lap of the race, but we'll see. So still Roderson, who last lap was a 22.2, so he's building that gap comfortably to Evans. He hasn't come across the line yet, but I'll wait for the Cooper coming outside our commentary box window. When it does pass, there it goes. And I'll check the gap as we watch Lawrence again charging down Bentley Straight once again for what should be the penultimate time. There goes Evans. Gap between second and third is there. And what's intriguing now is Lewis is kind of doing what he did in the end of yesterday's race, which is he's just getting closer, edging to the back of Tim Evans' car. He's got 2 more laps now, in theory, to be able to try and catch him again. And he was 0.3 quicker, even though Evans set a personal best on his last lap just gone. So Lewis is trying to put himself back on the podium again, but he's going to have to try and get a little bit quicker than that to try and achieve it.
Yeah, but no, you're right, actually. That's exactly what he did in race 1, wasn't it? He got quicker as it went on, and I was concerned a little bit that Tim Evans had got away from him early on. It didn't look like Carey was going to catch him, but that might not be the case. He might still have a shot at stealing the class win. Tim just held on yesterday, but Carey Lewis might be able to give him a run for his money in the closing stages of this race, as you quite rightly predicted. With about 5 seconds to spare, David Lawrence comes through to begin what will be the final lap of the race. And Paul Roderson not yet at the timing line. He was over 30 seconds back, I think, last time I checked. And it is likely that that gap has continued to grow, even in traffic. David Lawrence is running a very strong pace indeed as he heads down the Bentley Straight. Still, we don't have Paul Roderson at the line. There's a very sizable gap. And in fact, Lawrence has lapped quite a significant portion of the field, actually. He's just lapped David Richardson, so there are only 10 cars on the lead lap, and he might put a lap on Stephen Watson before the checkered flag, who's just ahead. 37 seconds, the gap first to second. Second to third is 1.1 seconds, so again, it came down by a little bit on that previous lap. But I suspect Carey Lewis might just run out of time, as he did yesterday. Another lap, and he could have maybe given Tim Evans something to think about, but I think Tim should just be able to hang on. The leader then comes off the final corner. He is, by the looks of it, going to put a lap on Stephen Watson, so he's going to rob Stephen of the opportunity to do one more lap of the just over 2 mile Snetterton 200 layout. He pulls alongside the Scirocco, and in fact doesn't quite get past him to the line, but he does take the checkered flag, so David Lawrence gets the win, and Stephen Watson will be granted one more lap of the Snetterton circuit. Roddison then comes home in second, or will eventually come home in second. As I said, it's quite a wait. I wouldn't mind seeing what's going on in that third place battle, though it is for a class victory, and Kerry Lewis in the green and white Golf has been catching Tim Evans steadily over the last couple of laps. They'll be somewhere in the second half of the lap by now, I would imagine. Good battle there going across the line as well. That was for 13th position, and the battle not to be last between Matt Anderson and Dawn Butcher. Matt Anderson just about by under 0.2 of a second, keeping Dawn Butcher at bay. Here comes Paul Roddison. Paul Roddison second across the line, and we'll now get our answer as to what's going on for third position. It is going to be the Audi TT then of Tim Evans, who just keeps Kerry Lewis at bay, with Oliver Divine King fifth, and a strong sixth place showing for Paul Dunningham. So the rest of them filter through. David Lawrence steamroller continues on. I'm sure the Snetterton crowd appreciated what was a dominant performance there from David Lawrence, who by 40.8 seconds was victorious. That's about 11 seconds bigger a winning margin than he had yesterday over, in that case, Tim Evans, who actually was 47 seconds behind him in third. It was Lawrence the winner, Roddison second, Evans third, who gets the class win ahead of Kerry Lewis. Then it was Oliver Divine King, Paul Dunningham, Paul Hoggins, Christopher Garnham, Jonathan Halliwell, also a class winner in the production class, ahead of Stephen Watson to complete the top 10. David Richardson was 11th, with Harley Young 12th, Matt Anderson 13th, and Dawn Butcher in 14th place. And the last of the runners, but that was the best of the battles, really, between Anderson and Butcher. Round of applause there from the Snetterton crowd. Always nice to see that. It's something the drivers do often take note of as they're driving back around on the cool-down lap. Giving a round of applause to at least the winner, but generally the whole field as they come through.